Hello and welcome to the Cyber1 YouTube channel. My name is Ray, and in this video the version 2 InMoov head or i2Head part 7, I'm going to do the much awaited pouring of the silicone mold for the face. So this is the first time I've ever done anything like this, so I don't know if this is going to work or not. So I've printed out the two parts. This was printed, or the bottom half of this section was printed in a transparent filament. Now, my experience with FDM printing of transparent filaments is they're never really transparent unless you're 100% infill and running a little over temperature. They're usually like an opaque, very opaque, which is what this is. I also printed the inner mold 3 pieces in the same material, and then I ran out of that material, so I used a different white material for the top. I probably printed it upside down compared to what I should have printed it, and that resulted in a pretty poor finish in the bottom. A lot of that black is actually from sandpaper that I use, or a sanding block I used to try and smooth it out. And I was having a lot of trouble getting it smooth. So in the end, I decided to try something a little bit different, and I used resin. Now, I've seen this done before. CyberSyntech on his videos has done a lot of resin coating of PETG, and that appears to work quite well. So I used the clear resin that I've been printing with for the rest of my robot and just coated that. And these two pieces coated separately came up quite well. I then joined them together, bolted them, like nut and bolted them together. In some places I've actually welded the nut in because it was difficult to keep it in there. And I've bolted everything together, but there was still a bit of a seam in around here that could potentially leak the liquid out. So I used a putty to fill that in, and then gave it a good sanding with just using small sandpaper to try and get a nice smooth finish, and that's come up reasonably well, I thought. Now, yesterday afternoon I was planning on doing the pour, and reading through the instructions again on the website that Gail has produced, he mentions something about the silicone, the EcoFlex he's using 00-10, being thin enough to seep in through the layer lines. And I know water can do that on some prints. So I decided yesterday to coat the face for the inside mold with resin as well, because it'll make it waterproof. And I have held water in this one when I was cleaning it after I'd finished sanding it. So I'm reasonably confident that it's waterproof, so the resin shouldn't leak out. But this is all new for me, so we'll see how we go. Now, I've got here scales, which I've done a review on in the past. I bought these containers cheap from the local supermarket. They're just a storage container. They came a pack of 4 for $5 or thereabouts. And I've got this EcoFlex 00-20. Now, I did try and get the 00-10 that he recommended, but it wasn't available here in Australia, and to get it in from overseas was very expensive, because shipping on something that has a bit of gravity to it is expensive. So I've got this. It came with instructions, which I've read through a couple of times. It did say on the back, applying a release agent, although not usually necessary, a release agent can make demolding easier when pouring into or over most surfaces, and they recommend their own. I haven't actually got any of that, so I'm going to go without it. Alright, so let's start putting this together. Now these are tapered. Don't know if I can get it. You can see it tapers in like so, and that's to make it easier to pull it apart when the silicone has cured. So whatever you do when you're putting this together, don't weld these pieces together. Now the other preparation thing to be aware of is there's lots and lots of sanding. Now I've got 2 screws. When the silicone starts to, or is being poured in here, it will try and flow out any hole or crack that you might have. So the recommendation was hot melt glue, because it's easy to remove. So I've got my hot melt glue gun. Just push that to one side for the moment. Okay. Now while you're doing this, there are 2 holes, one here, one on the other side, which lead into the ear. These are holes to let air out while you're pouring the mold, the silicone, into it. So make sure you don't cover that in the glue. So I've got glue all the way around, and that should seal it up quite happily. I have found that this hot melt glue peels off quite easily down the track. I've used it to hold wires and the like in place on PLA in the past, and yeah, it's easy to pull it off, so it should be easy to get rid of this glue later. Gael did note in his blog on it that there are some thinners that will actually melt it away, solvents. Alright, so that's that prepped as much as I can prep. Let's get this next part. Okay, so it's a 2-part and it's mixed 50-50. According to the website for the InMoov i2Head, we need between 500 and 600 grams of this. So I'm going to put 300 of each of these in and mix it up. Once it's in, I've got 30 minutes of working time to mix it and then pour it in. It's the pot life, as they call it. So stir well before using, and use at room temperature. So I am at room temperature. So once I start pouring this, our 30-minute time starts. Now when this is full, it should come out those 2 vent holes from the ears. So I just want to pour it slow, steady rate, preferably through this one hole to start with, because it's the lowest point, and let it slowly fill up through the sides. Coming up through this end hole now, so it must be getting close. I can see it coming up this hole. Not this one yet. Oh, there it is. Yeah, that's full. It's at the surface here, it's at the surface here, and I have got a leak over here. Alright, so that's the pour. I have got a leak. Not much I can do about that now. It is up to the top of the holes on both sides, so that's good. I poured in through the holes at the front here. They lead to the bottom of the jaw and the either side of the just below the eyes and the cheek area. I let it flow back up through the one near the head so I could see it filled up, and then once that area started to fully fill, I let it flow down the two side ones where I was letting air come out, and then any air in the ear has come up and come out through these two vent holes. So we'll come back to this in 4 to 5 hours and see if we can pull it apart. It's been a little over 6 hours and it's time to start pulling all this apart. Now it did leak a little bit out the front, but I did have enough in there that hasn't really gone down. So let's start trying to get it apart. I'll start by removing these screws. Now for those who are interested, the leftover that I had in my little tub has set, and it is actually very flexible. There was a little bit leak out. I've managed to clean up most of that off the outside edge. It also had a bit of a leak on the sides down through here. I don't know where exactly that leaked from. It was fine down here. You can see a little bit of a gap, but I had it sealed on the inside. There was a little bit of leaking down this side coming out, but not too bad. Now I've had the hot melt glue come off before quite easily. On the other side it peeled off pretty easy. This is harder to get off than it looks. That didn't help me. I don't think my mold's going to survive this. Oh, we've got some movement. Still looks damp. It is still damp. I think I might leave this as is and come back to it tomorrow. I have actually loosened it off a fair way, so that's good. But I think I'm going to have to let this set a bit more before I go any further. To me that seems a bit damp. So the instructions did say 4 hours. It has been 8, so I've left it for double. It is suggested by Gael to leave it overnight in his webpage, and I think his suggestion is better. It did come up a little way up the back, but not far, which is good. That means that was touching on the back pretty hard, but we're most of the way there. Might just trim those pieces off, and I can open up wide enough, and I'll leave that to finish setting. It is good to see that it's reasonably dry in the middle here. I'm thinking it didn't make it too much up the seams. But yeah, it's very gooey inside there. I might even just sit that back in place for now. Just to hold those in. It might need a little bit more air to expose, or it just might need more time. We'll see how it goes. If it's still a little bit soggy tomorrow, then it means I didn't mix it well enough. But we'll see how it comes out. So I've left this overnight, and let's see what it looks like now. Don't think it's made any difference leaving it overnight. Everything looks and feels damp, which to me suggests that it didn't get mixed properly. It might recover. So looking in the bottom, I think it looks like it may have sort of worked. It is very soft. I think at this point, I'm just going to take one glove off and remove these screws. So, reading through Discord from last night, it would appear that people have had different results. So I mixed up a 600 ml or a 600 gram, I should say, mix. Someone else said they mixed up a 600 gram and they ran short, whereas I've got, well, I had about 100 grams left over. So people are getting very different results. In my case, I think the issue I've got is I didn't mix it long enough or well enough. But this face might still be recoverable. We'll see how we go. It really doesn't want to come out. So I've released it from this side. And what I'm doing is I'm just scraping down from the edge to slowly release it from the back. Okay, that's back off. It has cured a little bit more overnight. This sprue has rolled over. I missed this one when I was cutting off sprues yesterday afternoon or evening. And it's stuck back to the rest of the head. I'm just trying to cut it out now. Here we go. So this might cure up some more when left to its own devices. There's a little bit of pop melt glue there still. Definitely need to use a mold release next time. You can definitely see a level where it's gone up to. That's the ear hole sprue. This is going to take a bit of getting out of, I think. One of the suggestions from Gael is to use compressed air, so I think I might have to try that. That will be an off-camera thing because it's out in the shed with where my compressor is. But we can see that it's mostly formed. But I definitely want to have another crack at this later when I get home from work. Okay, so it's been a couple of days and I did manage to get the silicone mold out of, well, the silicone cast, I should say, out of the mold. I did try a little bit of compressed air to try and blow it out of the bottom mold, and I managed to do a bit of damage in the process. So I wouldn't recommend using that method. I did stop, and in the end I literally just peeled it out. It was a slow job, and the whole time I was worried about doing damage to it. I did tear the ear a little bit on both sides. Not as bad on this side, but there is a little bit of a tear just on the edge. It's hard to see here. But it's not too bad. Someone in Discord asked me how I cut the eyes open, and the answer is I didn't. If you look at the mold, there's a little bit of a bulge here, and that lines up with a flat inside the front of the mold, the outside section, and those two were close enough that it excluded nearly all of that. I did do a little bit of a trim up, but it excluded pretty much all of the silicone in the middle. I did take a Stanley knife with a new blade in it, and I did cut in between the lips so that the mouth would open. And I've done a little bit of a clean up along the edge here. This has actually come out better than I expected. I thought that the mix was not done well enough, as in I didn't mix it long enough, and that was causing issues. Reading through the instructions that came with it, so this came in the box with the silicone casting as a kit. Apparently there's a number of things that can inhibit the silicone from curing. Some of that includes polyester epoxy, that can cause issues with. So I'm wondering if the resin, the UV resin that I used, may have inhibited some of the curing. I'd have to do that as a separate thing. I did, after pulling it out, remove the sprues from the back using a combination of my knife and a pair of side cutters. So the sprues I'm talking about, there's one here and one here, so they're either side of the nose. There's also a big one on the back of near the ear. There's one at the bottom just down here, and there's also one in the middle at the top of the head. So I did remove those sprues using the knife and side cutters to cut them out. I put a light coat of paint from my air gun or air spray kit over the top of this mold so it was easier to see on the camera, and that makes seeing this face a lot easier to see. So it's a lot easier to see this face on the camera now. Now I pull this part off the head. This holds magnets around the ears, and I found when I printed this, I printed it so that this side was down, and it came out reasonably well. But when you print direct on the bed with the SLA printer, they do have a bit of elephant's foot. And initially when I tested the magnets in those holes, they would not go in at all. And it turns out it's because there was elephant's foot. So I've been cleaning that up a little bit with a sharp knife. And I'll have to glue those in, and I'll have to glue these back onto the mask. Now there's a couple of ways you can glue these in. On the website it does list two different adhesives you can use. One is Silpoxy, which was not available at all in Australia, and the other one was a Dow Corning 732 glue, which I don't have on hand, but I might be able to get from the local hardware. So when I go up there tonight, I will have a look. The other method that you can use is to mix up another small batch of the silicone and put a dob on, put the magnet into it, and a little bit of paint over, let it set. And you can use that to fix any damage like these tears at the same time. So as I was extracting, I did cut out where it's poured. So this is from the bottom of the inner mold, or when it's upside down for the pour, it's at the top. And you can see I've just cut these so I could get it out. Otherwise there's no way of removing it. I did damage my inner mold, so when I turn this over, I broke off the tab at the back here, so I'm not going to be able to reuse this, which is a shame. One of the things the manual suggests, if you do have something that has an incompatibility, you can paint it with an acrylic sealant, and that will separate it and allow it to cure better. So that's something that I might try down the track. And they also say, while not necessary, a release agent might be a good idea. So if I go pour another one, like if I print out the female head and pour another one, then I will probably get the release agent at the same time, and I will coat my resins with a acrylic seal to maybe help promote curing a bit better. Something that Gael did tell me in Discord is that the EcoFlex 00-10 does have a tacky surface, which the manual also says, and you can use baby powder to help remove that tackiness. This is still a little bit tacky, it's not too bad. I did use paper towel to try and pull off a lot of the tackiness, which has worked to a point. But I might get some baby powder and just give it a once over with the baby powder to help with that. But I'll try and glue the magnets in before I do that. So the next step will be for me to glue in the magnets. These magnets are fairly strong. These are only 1 mil thick. The recommended is 1.5. And there's, what was it, 10 magnets? Yeah, 10 magnets on both the robot head and on the face mask. And yeah, there's a fair amount of magnetic force on those magnets to attract them together, so that will help a lot. So that'll do for this video. If you like these videos, don't forget to click on like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. It's a form of support, helps the channel a great deal, and costs you absolutely nothing. I also have a Patreon account. You can join all my patrons, such as VIP GoLucky, my All Access Jeff Jerd, and my builders El Morales 45, Andrew Cardone, and Havish in supporting the channel. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave a comment below or drop into the Discords. I'll have links to the my Discord, the official InMoov Discord, and the MyRobotLab Discords in the description below. And we'll see you in the next video.